call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Counselor Elliott?
Here.
Counselor Furlow?
Here.
Counselor Boland?
Here.
Counselor Grizzle? Here. And Counselor Fisher and Reese Camp are absent this evening.
Okay. And our city administrator is at the Oregon City Administrators Conference. I believe it's in Bend, Eastern Oregon.
Yeah.
And so he won't be here tonight. Okay, approval of council minutes from June 10th, regular session minutes. Were there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the council minutes from June 10th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Council minutes are approved. On the consent calendar, I have a slight change here for the agenda tonight. The city manager's report will be postponed to our noon meeting on 7/22, and the executive session will also be postponed until 7/22. So those will be the two changes. Everything else stands.
I'd move for approval as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Proclamation. Have a proclamation for National Night Out, August 4th, 2015. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch, NATW, is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 4th, 2015, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 32nd Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for Lebanon, Oregon to join forces with other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police, community, crime prevention efforts. And whereas the City of Lebanon plays a vital role in assisting the Lebanon Police Department through local joint crime prevention efforts and by supporting National Night Out 2015 in Lebanon. And whereas it is essential that all citizens of Lebanon be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs and the impact that their participation can have on reducing such crimes. And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety awareness, and cooperation are important themes of the National Night Out program. Now, therefore, I, Paul R. Aziz, Mayor of the City of Lebanon, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 4th, 2015, as National Night Out in our city, and call upon all citizens of Lebanon to join the Lebanon Police Department and the National Association of Town Watch in supporting the 32nd Annual Night Out. And I have a copy for you, Chief, if you'd like to come up, and I'll give you that. And there's proclamation. Very cool. Thank you very much. All right.
Oh, wait, there's got a picture playing on.
The picture? Okay.
Let's do the handshake.
Here we go. That's okay. All right.
Go one more.
And on a side note to that, when is the Park Watch meeting?
15.
Next, the 15th, they're at 6 o'clock,
5:30.
5:30 at the Justice Center. There's going to be a neighborhood Park Watch, and it's a new program that the police are setting up to get the community involved in helping out with the parks, and I think it's another, really ties in with the National Night Out program. So very excited about that, and thank you, Chief, for doing that. Appreciate it. Okay, next up is public comments. The council welcomes all respectful comments regarding the city's business. Citizens may address the council by approaching the microphone, signing in, and stating their name and address for the record. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. The city clerk will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. And first up, we have Cheryl Wilburn to speak. Come on up, Cheryl, and you can sit right up there.
And Cheryl had me distribute these earlier to each of you, so.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here.
Absolutely.
I'm announcing that in Lebanon, there is now a Survivors of Suicide Loss support group. And this group is being offered here in Lebanon, And I have a place and I have times, but at the moment I just have my name and phone number, which will also be in the newspaper in a week or so, because I interview the people first. Okay, and often after a suicide, those left behind often wonder if anyone really understands, and you're not alone. They're not alone. This group gives people the opportunity to talk with other survivors of suicide loss in a safe, understanding, and confidential place. So, and everyone in the group, including the facilitator, and I'm the facilitator, has had a family member or close friend take their own life and know how devastating that experience can be. My son, Will, took his own life in 2012. So this month is his 3rd year anniversary. So it's finally this, I'm just amazed this is happening of a group here, because I feel Lebanon also needs this type of group, or because there's a ripple effect with suicides. In our family, we only have a small family, and its ripple effect is 20 people. And we only have 4 in our family. I mean, immediate family, and then there's uncles and bosses and co-workers of Will. So if you have a large family, just imagine how many people in Lebanon this affects. So we want to be there for those people, and Clematis has the knowledge. This is my daughter, Clematis.
Why don't you hold on just one second? Let's let the
Okay.
train go by. We've tried talking over it, it just doesn't work. Okay, go ahead.
Well, that was fun. Little earthquake. So, Clematis understands in a different way than I do because of being a sibling. And, it kind of leaves a lot of unanswered things because of my health. Now, she's the only one left to take care of me. So that support system for her is gone. But, so she understands the siblings, and we know how it feels. We know how it feels. So, did you want to say anything, Clem? Okay.
Well, thank you very much for coming. It's a really important thing that we have in our community. I know that you can work with the police department, and I know you and I had talked earlier, and you can work with the different religious organizations in town. So it's an awesome thing, and it's something that we need. And I was surprised when you told me that we didn't have anything like that. So it's a great support group, and I could see how important it would be. Suicide does affect a lot of people.
Cheryl, I'd love if you would reach out to the fire department as well, because very often
You're on my list.
we're out there. Great, yeah. So please stop by and
I
pass your info
sure
along.
will.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Commend you for
Very
your
much.
effort. Excellent.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, and
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you
for
so
stepping
much
up.
for your support. It means an awful lot. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And I'll make sure we get that on our city Facebook page. I don't think we've done that, but we'll get that on that too. Thank you. Okay, next up, do we have...
Nobody else has signed up.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address? What?
I did not know we were supposed to sign up beforehand. I apologize.
You'll have to.
No, you don't have to. Just if we have a lot of people, sometimes we'll have them sign up. Everyone has your handouts.
Thank you.
why it's wearing green in support of the Ducks.
Actually, I am wearing green because I was informed that my blue polo that I was wearing earlier was too short and not appropriate for city council, so.
Thank you.
It wasn't that short, Jason. Councilman Holman.
You're on the clock.
Thank you. Mayor Aziz and the Lebanon City Council. I'd like to start by apologizing for my remark on Facebook after the last city council decision regarding marijuana. I allowed my passions to overwhelm me and I lashed out, and it was both inappropriate and disrespectful, as well as just plain being wrong. There are many people from all walks of life that have different opinions on every issue. Marijuana is no different, and it was wrong of me to use such a broad stroke to express my frustration. I'm sorry again. I'm going to do my level best to make sure it doesn't happen. I owe you all a lot more respect than that. I'd like to thank you for everything that you do for our town, and once again apologize for my Facebook remarks. I should have known how quickly things spread in Lebanon, especially on Facebook. Okay, now that I've eaten my crow, it's my hope that today's Measure 91 update will set the record straight, that according to House Bill 3400, Lebanon is not eligible for our municipal government to opt out of marijuana sales, and that the Measure 91 law supersedes our local ordinance saying that business permits must adhere to federal law. Based on these statutes, the only way for Lebanon to go against the voice of the people of Oregon is by a citizen petition and election. I have handed out the statutes for you to review. I have done my best to make the important parts stand out. But when you boil it down, it's clear that how we have currently addressed this issue won't last. Above that, I worry that our current ban will lead to negative publicity that will label our community as regressive and cast shadows on a dull and dull our ever brighter shining star. I feel that this is a very real danger of being labeled regressive. If we come across as a place that is, don't know of a synonym for aggressive, but if we dig our heels in, we're going to send a message to young families and young professionals that, hey, maybe this isn't the community for you. And we need young families and young professionals to continue Lebanon's growth and to become the vibrant community that we really know that we can be and are becoming. Digging in our heels on issues where growing generations support them threatens our future, and to me is not what you would call a hallmark of a friendly and thriving community. I feel that I know your concerns. A bunch of seedy drug shacks popping up all over Lebanon, leaving blights in our community by allowing illicit, if not illegal, activities to take place, harming our people. I feel very confidently that this will not be the case. Just as liquor stores are limited in every community, so will dispensaries. They'll be very heavily regulated. I have brought the list of all the different things that the OLCC can deny a license for, including the application is not demanded by public interest or convenience, meaning that if Lebanon doesn't want more dispensaries, Lebanon doesn't get more dispensaries. It also has a bunch of, I should say, very many requirements for the owners and proprietors of these operations. They have to be of good moral character. They can't have broken any laws. They have to have the ability and agree to respect all the laws. These will not be seedy drug shacks. I've been to Main Street Marijuana in Vancouver, Washington, and I was very impressed with how the operation is ran. Before you can even get in, they have a big old burly bouncer checking every ID. Once you get in, the marijuana itself is fully removed from the sales floor. In order to get what you're looking for, you have to place the order, wait in line, and then the dispenserist, I don't know what you call the weed version of pharmacists, they have to give it to you. That's a 3-point check that says, if you're not supposed to get this marijuana, you won't be getting it. Lebanon had a dispensary for a year, and I wonder how many issues, how many crimes, how many disturbances arose from that dispensary in that year. I don't think many, because I found out about it today. Today, that dispensary operates out of Albany. It has a 4.7 out of 5-star review, over 113 different reviews. That's a lot. Most places don't get reviews. I think RKI, who pushes for reviews, has 2 online. This dispensary is a powerful and positive force, and one that Lebanon could and should have had. Lebanon needs the additional tax revenue. Lebanon's people need a safe, local place for them to get their medicinal and recreational marijuana. And most importantly, Lebanon's kids need the black market eradicated. If we don't have a place for them to buy, the black market still exists.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Any counselors care to respond?
Thank you for coming, Wyatt.
Yeah, I just appreciate the information, and we'll see what Mr. Kennedy has for us tonight for an update.
And the one question I do have about the dispensary that was in Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken, that was outside city limits. It was not in the city proper.
But it was in Lebanon. I mean, it's just very...
But that's not city limits. There's a big difference.
Correct. But
It was
it was
near
in a
Lebanon.
pocket that was just technically out of city limits. So for all intents and purposes,
I just
he's
wanted to be
correct.
clear that it wasn't in city limits, and that's
right.
that's our
If
regulations.
it was
is city
out,
limits.
it's out regardless of how far.
I understand, but Lebanon residents had access, but just as well as if it was a block away and in city limits, so
Is
it is
one
a
of the-
technicality.
One of the islands of
Yes.
county property?
Correct.
Right across from U.S. Bank there, Game Time Bar, right across the street.
There's a lot of county pockets in that area.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 1, new franchise agreement. I'm sorry. First of all, was there any other people from the public that would like to speak? I didn't see anybody, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on with item number 1, new franchise agreement, and that will be presented by Rob Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you have before you tonight is a proposed new franchise agreement with Astound Broadband, or doing business as Wave. They first approached us, I think, January, February, and inquired about getting a new telecommunications franchise, meaning phone and internet, not video, not cable services. So they inquired about that. We brought our existing telecommunications agreement we currently have one with CenturyLink. We brought up that agreement, sent that over to Astound, made edits back and forth, did that for a few months, agreed upon an agreement. Pretty standard agreement. I won't go through the details of that agreement. It's pretty dry. It's pretty standard to other agreements that we have, other franchise agreements that we have. Provides a mode of protection to the city and a mode of protection to Astound as well. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the intricacies of what they're proposing, but just generally, they're proposing to provide internet and phone service only to businesses within town, not to individual homes and not to residences. They will provide, it'll be a fiber optic line or lines. They will install on existing utility poles. Won't be installed underground. Any kind of, the agreements passed tonight, any kind of activity in town will probably a year away, something like that. We are proposing to charge 7% on their revenue, which is what we also charged CenturyLink, which happens to be the maximum we can charge per ORS, or Oregon statute. So I'd be happy to answer questions on the ordinance. If you have questions about what Astound or Wave is proposing, I do have in the audience Fred Miller. knows way more than I do about what they're proposing. So if there are any questions about what they're proposing, Fred would answer those questions as well.
Rob,
So-
I have a question on the 7% being the maximum.
Okay.
Is that specifically for a communications franchise fee? Okay.
Right.
Because
I
I spoke with Allied when they were getting ready to give us more money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, that's great. But they were trying to make it equitable. They had some communities charging as much as like 13%. And that seems a little egregious to me.
And I think, as far as I'm aware, there are 2 franchise agreements that their regulations for maximum fees are set. Telecommunications at 7, and not internet, but cable franchise, the maximum fee is set at 5%. And we are at both of those maximums for both of those franchises.
Quick question on the actual services. So it's going to be business services, it's going to be like T1 kind of service for some businesses if they want it, real high-end services? Come on up.
Go.
Thank you. Fred Miller here from Wave. Yeah, what we're planning to do, what's driving most of this right now is service to cell towers. So your cell service should improve immensely once this fiber network is done. So there's an entire regional network. Once we have the base load of the construction to the regions covered with the cell tower projects. By the way, I want to point out, no new cell towers are being brought in, just simply connecting the existing ones. Yeah, then it is a matter of bringing services such as, well, we have gigabit internet for those businesses that want it. There also can be a 10 megas of internet for the smaller scales of businesses. The most likely first adopters will be schools, local governments, healthcare providers, and then those kinds of businesses that are bandwidth intensive. The next wave starts to get around to someone who realizes, like we had an insurance company in one town recently say, you know, it's a perk for us to have our call center here. We want our company employees to be happy, so we let them use Netflix and Pandora and whatever else during their workday. So if that's the case, then those other kinds of uses start to come into play. And the third wave will be businesses that start to figure out what they can do with the service we offer. And that's, we do offer dark fiber and burstable internet and transport. So regional banks can start to create a LAN. With the dark fiber connection, that's a pure individual use of one whole strand of fiber. So there won't be any limit to bandwidth on that. Currently, practical limit is 10 gigabits per second, but we've also done some connections at 40, and they're talking about 100 and so on. The neat thing about dark fiber, it's totally secure, and it's only one company's switches between their own locations. So neat service to have to offer.
How old is your company?
Let's see, Wave was started in 2003. We started with a small cable company up in La Conner, Washington, and then acquired more cable systems and made the pivot to fiber and business services probably about 5-6 years ago.
Any other questions? Thank you, Fred. Appreciate that. Thank you, Rob.
You bet. Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? Do I have a motion, or, I need to have the city attorney read.
Ordinance Bill Number 2015-5, Ordinance Number 2861, a bill for an ordinance granting a non-exclusive franchise for Astound Broadband LLC doing business as Wave.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill number 2015-5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ordinance passes. Number 2, amending resolution number 2015-19, levying taxes for the City of Lebanon's fiscal year 2015-16 budget. Dean Baugh, City Finance Director.
Okay, so this is the resolution I told you in June we'd be coming back. Remember the one that had all the X's in it, where we're required to levy taxes by June 30th. We have to give them the delinquent sewer and storm drain fees to turn over to the county. But we can't get those numbers till after June 30th, so we come back each July now and do an amendment. So that's all this is. As of June 30, July 1, the morning of, Teresa runs a report, says, here's all the folks that are eligible to be turned over to the county, and I have that list, which I'll take over this week to the county. Delinquent storm charges are the $81,718.35, and storm drain charges are $6,204.08. And these are the sewer only and storm drain only. If they have water and you're able to shut them off, then the state does not allow you to turn it over to the county. So these are only sewer only, which it's really hard to turn those off without digging it up and putting a plug in it. So this is the way that gets done. And as we turn them over, we also added administrative charges on our fee schedule, and goes to the county. And then it shows up in the tax bill next year. So that's what this is, and we do this each year. So that would be the staff report. If there's any questions. And the rest of Resolution 19, levying taxes, all stays the same. We're only amending the one section. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Go ahead and read the...
Resolution number 2015-27, a resolution amending Section 1 of Resolution number 19, 2015, levying taxes fiscal year 2015-16 to include delinquent sewer and storm drain assessments.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2015-27. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last on the docket, we have number 3, Measure 91 Marijuana Initiative, legislative update by City Attorney Trey Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I just wanted to have this on the agenda so you could know kind of what was passed at the legislature and now signed into law by the governor. And to a certain extent, and thank you, Wyatt, for bringing some of that stuff up, because I agree with you. Lebanon is not eligible to ban dispensaries without a vote of the people. That is true. The legislation basically says if the vote failed by 55% or more in the county, in any county, then cities or that county can prohibit by council or commission resolution the sale, processing, et cetera, of marijuana in that area. I went and checked on the Lynn County website, and it looks like it failed in Lynn County 52 to 47, with some points out there. And then also in some stories you would read that all 15 counties that defeated it by more than 55% were all in eastern Oregon. And then if you read some more, it was because of, one specific powerful legislator from eastern Oregon who was able to trade off some stuff and got that provision entered into the bill. So for the long and the short of it is that provision doesn't really affect anybody on the west side of the state. However, and that refers to Section 133, which Wyatt referred to in his materials. There's also, though, however, Section 134 that does provide, and this is one of the provisions that was lobbied for hard by the League of Oregon Cities, which allows a governing body or city or county to basically adopt an ordinance that would ban different aspects of the marijuana production, and it talks about there's 6 different categories. There's marijuana processing, medical marijuana dispensaries, marijuana producers, processors, wholesalers, and retailers, and all of those are defined within the law. The caveat is that you pass a resolution prohibiting it, and at the same time have to refer it to a vote of the people in that district. If the people in that, with us, if the people in the city were to agree with one or all of those, they would be separate referendums, then that becomes basically the law of the city. So basically it's saying, yeah, you can prohibit it, but if you prohibit it, you got to have a vote, and the vote has to be in your favor. Otherwise, you have to open it up. And I read the different areas because it's not necessarily that the vote's going to be one way or the other on all of these areas. For example, there may be a group of people that really don't want, commercial growing within the city limits of Lebanon, and that's something that could be addressed as well. There may be a number of people that would vote for medical marijuana, but not for recreational marijuana. And do we want a warehouse where they process the marijuana in the city of Lebanon? So all of these different facets could be provided in essentially 6 different referendums that will be provided and voted on in November of this year. So that's kind of the option, the local option that it gave cities on the west side of Oregon. And, is it a perfect deal? No, it was a bunch of trade-offs among legislators to try to get something done. And to be perfectly frank, I'd rather them got this done than nothing done, because we're truly in limbo. There also is a provision in the bill that would attempts to preempt anything else that the city's done. That may or may not be effective, because you can't preempt home rule if it's, let's just say that there's some discussion going on with the League of Oregon Cities and the Oregon City Attorneys Association that will be interpreting that. But I think it's fair to say that simply relying on the violation of federal law is going to be harder as we move forward. It will get challenged, and I don't know what will happen. They'll probably roll everybody into it. Most likely, most municipalities and counties that want to address this are going to go along the roads of having a vote of the people. I had Linda, asked her, and she was generous enough to run the numbers. And, in the numbers, and this was just on the measure to legalize recreational, and it did pass. We pulled the precincts in Lebanon, and out of 5,000 votes, it passed by, at least according to the numbers, 149. And that's simply on the recreational side. It was kind of a big picture vote.
Slim margin.
Yeah, very slim margin. And, and realistically, Lynn County, was 52% to 46% against overall in Lynn County. So, it's something that's, it's not something that has an overwhelming, at least in this area, support, or, everybody's against. It's pretty amazingly close, really. But what I like about it is it gives us the option to present all of the different facets of the marijuana process to the voters. I think it at least, if we did it this way, and I say that, it's totally up to the council. They could approve it. They could say, we want to legalize it, and then still put it to the vote of the people. And then if they come back and say, no, we don't want it, then I think that's harder. Because then we've got businesses moving in here, investing money, and then a year from now, if the vote goes against them, then they have to close or they sue us because they spent money in the city. So realistically, I think just from a safety just from what's the safest for liability purposes for the city, if you're going to go out for a vote, I would say, we're not going to change anything right now. It's still not allowed in Lebanon, but hey, if you vote for it in November and it passes, hey, we're going to regulate it. We're going to follow the state laws, and we're going to move forward. Because I think simply relying on the violation of federal law, like I said, is going to get harder and harder. I think the state really wants to see that go away, from all indications. So I see it as you have basically three options. You can do nothing. That means our moratorium, not the moratorium, but the ban basically that we set up through the resolution that says we're not going to allow anything that violates federal law. I think that's risky, given the preemption language and the language interpretation that the legislature's done. You could simply vote to authorize it, which we've had those discussions before, or you could follow this section 134 and basically vote on each one of the different facets of the marijuana issue and refer it to the people, and we could get it on the ballot in November of 2015. So that's kind of the options. I don't necessarily need any decisions tonight. I know we're short counselors. We can get direction. If we had a, we can get direction and certainly bring it back. We need to do it by. I think it's August 14th. There's some timelines that come in, but to get it on the
Pretty much by
ballot.
this July 22nd meeting, for sure, we need to come to some sort of decision.
Actually, if we do August 12th meeting, we can still do it then, and Trey and I can still have enough time to get to it.
And part of the reason I'd like to wait till August 12th. That's part of it, but the main reason is that the Oregon League is drafting language for each one of those areas that will go out on the referendums, because we'd like to see that be consistent and not be challenged and be fair, and they help with that. Robert.
Do I remember correct that the county commissioners passed an ordinance that set out zones where marijuana could be grown? What impact if that's accurate, what impact would that ordinance that they passed have in relationship to the new state law that was passed? Is that...
No, and you can still regulate it. I mean, if the vote came back, for example, in Lebanon and said, no, we want all of it, I mean, we don't want you to outlaw anything associated with Lebanon, we still come back with legislation that regulates it, time, place, manner, so many feet from a school, certain industrial zones, not in commercial zone, you know, whatever. There's all kinds of that type of regulations that have been going on. Sorry, did I miss something?
Let me refine my question a little bit. I don't think that any of the zones that were included in the county ordinance were contained within the city of Lebanon.
No, there was only one, and it is...
Is it Tangent, I believe?
It's kind
of the Tangent area.
Eastern area, or excuse me, the western edge of Tangent, one spot, and that was it.
So
for crop production purposes.
So if that's the case, then if the voters of Lebanon said that they wanted that to occur, what impact would the ordinance have?
They really can't legislate what we can do and can't do in the city of Lebanon, for the most part.
County doesn't supersede us.
Okay.
All right. They're outlying areas outside our border.
Well, I'm in favor of a vote, personally.
I am too.
I would like to see
individually.
I would like to see the community vote on it and get their response. And I like the different parts of it because, again, I kind of felt like the vote, everything was just clumped in on the original ballot. And it was just everything. It was marijuana, it was legalization, it was the dispensaries. And I think having those specifics that there may be a good fit. There may be something that does happen here or doesn't.
So there would actually be 6 different measures on the ballot then?
Well, there could be. I have to go in and kind of figure out, is it really necessary to have separate ones for producing, processing, wholesaling? Could those 3 be one? I mean, that's something, I mean, it could be up to 6, and that's something that we're waiting on direction from the City Attorneys Association and the League of Oregon Cities on how to drop those referendums.
This seems to me like we want to vote again, and we want to vote until we get it the way we want it. We voted, and I got the same numbers Trey did. I pulled the city precinct numbers from Steve Druckenmiller's office, and Lebanon voted, and Lebanon citizens voted for it. Now we're going to go out again in the hopes that 149 people change their mind and flip back. You know, now we risk really having it ramrodded because I guarantee you there's going to be people really beating the bushes to get their cause out. And so they voted. We did it. We had the state vote, and it went through. To me, to put out 6 more referendums, I'm assuming there's some cost involved with that, but I don't know how much that. You know what that is?
Linda would have a better idea. I don't think it's huge.
I'm not sure.
We'd have to put out a pamphlet. We'd have to put,
There'd be some cost.
There'd be some cost to the city.
Yes.
So we're spending dollars, tax dollars, to get an answer that we already have, is kind of my opinion. And I know you guys know my opinion, but to me, it's done, it's voted. Let's regulate it. Let's set up our zones, and let's say it can't be this far from a school or a hospital or a church or whatever, and let's regulate it, but let's allow it. Let's let our citizens have the freedom to pursue it under state law, which I soon will probably be challenged and overturn the federal part of, who knows, but let's let it go, and we can regulate it ourselves as far as where, when, how, who. And the OLCC is pretty well practiced at that. They do it already every day for all of our bars and all of our liquor stores and restaurants, et cetera.
Jason, are you afraid of a vote by the public?
No, actually, I am.
Sound like it.
No, I'm actually, I think a vote would blow it away. I think if it did go to a vote, it wouldn't be 149. I think it would be many hundreds in favor, because I really think that once people hear that...
Not individually. I don't agree with you.
Yeah, maybe, but I think if they're going to vote for one, they're going to vote for all, because
No.
they're just going to thumb it in.
And I,
Smarter than that.
and I think now what we're discussing is marijuana legal in Lebanon. So that ship has sailed. So even people that understand now, it's legal in Lebanon. So now the decision is, ultimately, some of the decision is there a financial impact on Lebanon? Will Lebanon opt out of tax revenue? You're not going to keep Lebanon people from using marijuana.
No.
You're just opting out of the tax revenue that would be created if we regulated it in the city. So I agree with Jason. I think a vote will be far greater in favor of this, because people understand now that the ship has sailed. Now it's, are we going to make money on it or not?
The state of Washington just released their official numbers. I saw a news article about it, I think on the Oregonian. They projected for the 2014-15 fiscal year, they projected $34 million in marijuana revenue. It came in at over 70. It almost doubled their projection. People are smart, and they're going to see, look at the money in there for our city. Once 2017 rolls around, if you ban this, that's it. You're done. You're going to get 1 year's worth of shared revenue, and then it's over. And I just hate. I love getting free money, like when Allied Waste wants to give it to us, and I sure hate turning it away for digging our heels in, I guess, for using Wyatt's term there, but. It's coming. This train is coming. Let's just regulate it. Let's just tell them where to put the tracks down, and tell them how fast they can drive, and tell them who can drive the engine, and we control it. And then we have our authority that takes care of it.
And I'm not afraid of a vote. And if it comes down to that, and I have a feeling when we discuss this on the 22nd, with this current council, it will come down to that, to say, okay, let's let the people vote on it. You know, I guess I'll support that I supported us not having made the decisions we made in the past anyway. But if we have to do a vote, I feel confident in how the people of Lebanon will vote, and I'll support either way.
What are we? We're 2 weeks in? We're almost 3 weeks in? What have we seen as far as RPD, as far as calls related to has this been an issue with us? Or for our police?
It has been an issue for us. Part of that issue is education. Part of that issue is legislation kind of twiddling their thumbs until, yesterday is when they finally made some rulings. So it's a little bit frustrating for law enforcement side of things, because there was no real clear picture of what it is that we are to enforce, not to enforce. So those issues we are taking on a call-by-call basis and wading through the in my opinion, are muddy waters, because there is no clear picture. We've had a few calls of now, people are growing marijuana in their backyards, and is it or is it not in public view, and is it upstairs? If I'm a neighbor and I'm upstairs and I see a plant growing, is that in public view? So there's a lot of unanswered questions still that we're trying to answer. As far as, smoking in public view, we've had a few calls of that. But it's nothing out of the, ordinary. It was to be expected. We're going to receiving calls because it's so prevalent.
People are confused.
People are similar to alcohol, yes. On a law enforcement side of things, it's still a work in progress, confusing issue, and we're still trying to wade through all the legalities of what are we going to enforce and how are we going to enforce it.
You guys are waiting for all this to get cleared up.
Unfortunately, we're kind of, we're kind of just waiting and standing by, waiting for things to be clarified for our purposes.
Mayor?
Yes, Robert.
I would recommend that we refer the measure to the citizens for the vote and wait until we get the ruling from the attorney group as to how to differentiate that. I think by doing that and making that available to us in November, if I understand the press reports accurately, that would then give OLCC time, and I think they have till the 1st of October or the 15th of October to file their rulings about how things would be allowed and how the process could be initiated within the community. I think it would be premature on our part to go ahead and start processing that and start initiating potential vendors in the community until those rules have been propagated and we have an opportunity to see the impact from the voters, see what those rules are, and then allow us to be able to set the parameters and the restrictions that we may want to and need to for the public's safety and protection in place. I think it would be premature not to wait until that additional information is available to us.
Can we get the options again? What were we said we had 3 options, more or less.
Do nothing, rely on our ban right now.
Okay.
And that's the one that I say is risky. Council could change their mind and say, no, we're just going to authorize and regulate. Or 3, what we're talking about, the vote.
So for number 2, basically we'd have to amend our municipal code and take out, that's the whole hang up is the federal law verbiage.
For the most part, yeah.
I would recommend we do that. That would be my choice. And we just get going with it.
I have to admit to you, I'm still uncomfortable. I think if Wayne were here tonight, he might say something similar. It puts us as elected officials in a very precarious position to pass an ordinance that potentially could put our city staff in jeopardy. I mean, are we prepared as the city council? Should someone opposed to the sale of marijuana take on some of our city staff? Are we going to indemnify them and provide legal coverage for them for disobeying federal law if someone were to choose to press that matter?
And I believe that is completely a virtual non-issue. And I said the last time, the federal government has come to federally insured financial institutions and said, you may open accounts for these marijuana dispensaries. And I don't know any other way for them to convey their, not blessing, but certainly to say, we're hands off. You go ahead, transact this, take this money, and I don't know if you know, but we're heavily regulated as far as the federal government goes on tracking drug money, and they've said, basically, marijuana, boom, okay, they need access to financial services. Otherwise, they're dealing in just cash, and that's a huge societal risk.
You still can't possess marijuana on a federal facility. You can't possess it in a federal park.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they're recognizing, though, that in states like Oregon, Washington, Colorado, that there are ways to, even though it's not federally legal, there are ways that the state has said, look, we're going to make it legal, and it's going to be on private property, and it's going to, and certainly, as Jason pointed out, there's still employers that can say, absolutely not, if we test you. That is completely irrelevant. What's relevant is that there are ways to have it consumed that the federal government is saying, we are not enforcing this, period.
My only point is, and I agree with you, right now, the risk is almost nil.
Yes.
I think that when I look at this big picture, and I don't get into the policy decision, but I look at risk. The risk would be a change in federal government leadership and a different outlook. But realistically, they'd attack the states and not Lebanon.
Correct. And they wouldn't storm into dispensaries or cities that were, they'd have to storm statewide, several states at a time. That is not a risk to us.
From a risk management standpoint, with our liabilities in mind, what do you see as being the risk of going with amending our code and activating it and saying, we're going to now regulate it and allow it.
I don't think with either of the second two choices that there's much risk. I mean, we're going to join a growing, if we were to authorize it and regulate it, joining a growing number of communities that are doing that. I think there's going to be a growing number of communities that follow Section 134 and have a vote and see how it pans out. I think either of those two are fairly safe, and I think that's what the legislature wanted to give us. They wanted to give us a couple different options that were actually options, and we know that if we do this, it's going to be okay, one way or the other.
I just feel like going to a second vote undermines the power of our voters. They voted. They did it. They said yes or no. They had every opportunity to do it.
What did they vote on?
They voted
Just
for
legalization.
sale of recreational and the use of recreational and the ability, just as it read in the
I don't think it was read
measure.
that way.
How do you think it was read?
I think it was just the legalization of marijuana, period.
So, in other words, then they were in favor of legalizing marijuana.
Yeah.
I guess what are they not in favor of then?
Well, I don't know.
I think one of the things, consistent with where you're going, Bob, is the consumption and sale of alcohol is permitted, but there are restrictions about how close to a school that those establishments can happen. So that's up to the local community to establish those parameters. So I think, and I have not read that initiative for some time, so I can't remember exactly all that it said.
Yeah.
I would need to be refreshed on it, and I could be in error, but I do believe the basic premise was to legalize marijuana. It was not to establish what those zones are of whether sales or manufacture or processing or those other kinds of things that are embodied within that particular industry, if all of those things would fit the community norms.
That,
I believe, is what we need some guidance on.
Just a quick.
So I think we'd be remiss in not refining what this community's interests and norms are.
I respectfully disagree. I think that it's on every voter to read the pamphlet, to know the referendum, to know the candidate they vote for. Who are we to say that they did or did not? Maybe they were very up to speed on it. We're assuming that they weren't up to speed. That's not an assumption we can make. But what we can do is we can be the regulating body that sets the parameters and sets the distances. That's what we can do. That's our job. The citizens have already spoken. It's our job to now fine tune it. And do you know who sets the 1,000-foot rule, the OLCC stuff? Is that an OLCC regulation? Is that an ORS?
I believe it's OLCC regulation, and I think we do have some ordinances that, like, for instance, selling paraphernalia. It can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, or 100, I think it's 1,000 feet of a school, and there's a whole process that they got to go through in our own ordinance.
Tobacco, alcohol, et cetera.
Tobacco, alcohol. I think
seems like an easy tie-in. It's another vice. It's an easy tie-in.
I think it's I think it's specific to paraphernalia. I don't know about tobacco, and I mean, you get 7-Eleven, which is right down the street from, they sell alcohol and tobacco. So
the gentleman that was in here a couple months ago he had a map already mapped out of Lebanon, where the schools were and where the zones would be, where he's the one that owns the dispensary in Corvallis, and he had a pretty comprehensive map already, so.
And if I may, I think the biggest question on my mind is we were talking about regulation, and how are we going to regulate it? Are we going to leave it up to OLCC, or are we going to leave it up to local agencies? For instance, you have your OLCC who regulates the sale of alcohol right now, whereas we don't necessarily regulate that. That's all done by OLCC. Now, sometimes that can be frustrating because OLCC is spread pretty thin. Is it going to mean that OLCC is going to...
We approve permits.
We don't approve permits. We basically send them through for OLCC for approval.
We recommend.
We recommend. There we go. It's an acknowledgement.
But do we have the power to stop one of those?
No.
Only if they
violate one of the 3 and 5.
Correct.
Okay, 'cause I remember we've had people come through that had history, and it was a judgment call on council that,
We could have recommended denial, but I can tell you that
okay,
that particular case opinion.
right.
And our denial means almost nothing to OLCC. They can come back and approve if you
This is
deny.
their
Unless there was a legitimate law enforcement case. I mean, we were having call after call into that area. I know in my time in the military, you know, the power that I had, you know, as the health director was to simply go to the provost marshal and say, this place is causing me all kinds of problems, going, you know, and I would like you to put it off limits. And we did that where appropriate. So I think that
Significantly
the OLC
more
guidelines
complicated
that are going
here.
to come out in the fall are going to give us some general guidance. We may want to refine that a little bit more because they're walking on virgin territory themselves here.
Right, and I guess that was kind of my point, and well, it was kind of, I was trying to make the point of, I'd like to know what those regulations are. I'd like to know, like you're saying, I'd like to know how are we going to regulate and what are we going to do? Because there's still those unanswered questions. I mean, as we're discussing amongst the room, we don't have a clear picture of what this is yet. So that's my biggest concern as a,
Well,
that there lies the problem. Yeah, let's legalize marijuana, but let's not set any parameters or let's not set any rules yet, but let's go ahead and legalize it and good luck.
But if we put this to,
That would be foolhardy.
if we put this to a vote, and it's a vote for yes, we're going to be right back here in December facing the exact same questions. It doesn't change anything.
No, it does.
The only
It does
hope is
change
that they
things.
vote no. What if they vote yes, Mayor?
It does change things, though. It confirms then what some of us don't believe, because I don't believe that the vote was correct either. I just don't.
I mean, how do you, are you saying that our...
People voted for legalization of marijuana.
Right.
That bill was poorly written. As you can see, the fact that they still don't have regulations for it was terribly written. And I don't think people understood it. I talked to people on both sides, and people that actually were for marijuana didn't want it because they thought it was weird, the way the law was written, because there were some strange things in that law. I've talked since we've done the moratorium, and I've talked to people on both sides, and they feel going to a vote would be beneficial for both sides. And I agree. I think that just going to a vote, putting out to the people, putting the different issues out there, and again, we may get that dispensaries, people want that. We may get that the manufacturing people don't want that. I think that's appropriate for our town, and I think let the community decide. And if you're not afraid to see what the actual community of Lebanon says, then I'd say let's go for a vote.
Well, I think I'll be for whatever, you know, the majority says, and I'll back that as a counselor, aside from my personal stance as an individual counselor. But I feel that the move to go to a vote, we're just kicking that hornet's nest. You're going to get, my prediction is, it's going to be a landslide in comparison to that for yes, probably on all of them, because they're going to want to thumb their nose at every single one of us. And at that point, come December, we're right back here trying to figure this out. And
But there's no regulations yet. We won't even have them probably until winter. So that's the whole point, is by doing this, we're giving the people the say-so, and yes, okay, people say yes, if that's the vote.
But until then, people are going to continue to grow it, they're going to continue to harvest it, they're going to continue to carry it around. It's legal.
It is.
This is so ridiculous to me. It's legal, and so they're going to continue to have the calls to PD. Nothing's going to change, except that we're going to potentially delay the ability to collect revenue for this. So, you know, if the majority, if it wants to be a 4-2, and we're going to go ahead and go to the vote, we'll go to the vote, and people like Wyatt King are going to hop up on their soapbox and look out, because
So be it.
the advocates are going to come out. Well, and so be it. We'll be right back here in December. So.
You know, he's got the opportunity to voice his opinion.
Sure he
And we
does.
do too.
So maybe I can just make a recommendation. I mean, this is just a discussion item tonight. I can certainly come back with the language for the ordinance that would then turn into a referral to the voters. And Jason, if you want me to draft something up that you can propose as well, and they can have a vote on both of them, I'd be happy to do that.
We'll love it.
I obviously don't have I don't care. I don't do policy. So, but we just know we do have to act now or soon and do something, so.
We obviously need to act, if we're going to act, by the vote deadline, so we
Oh, yeah.
either need to address that at the meeting on the 22nd or the meeting on the 12th. I personally believe we need further guidance from the state, from OLCC, in order to craft the appropriate utilization in Lebanon. And I think the vote gives us that time to accomplish both of those things.
I mean, I know, not just to make a point, I think realistically, we're looking at November, probably before we get anything in place anyways. I understand your point, Jason, but I don't think this really changes the regulation that the city's going to do if the vote is like you say it is. It just postpones it a month or two, maybe.
It's easier from here.
Make it more friendly.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Okay. With
Love you
that,
guys. Still like you.
I'll still be your friend on Facebook.
I'm unfriending all of you.
Items from council? Anything from councilors? I'll be going to the Oregon Mayor's Conference the end of the month, July 30th, I think it is, the last week of the month, and I'll be attending that. We've got a lot of activities coming up this summer. We've got the park meeting next week, which I think is really an important thing.
Yeah.
And I hope we get a lot of people out to that, because I think that the community has spoken, and I know I hear all the time that we need to take our parks back, and I think that's the way to do it.
That's a great idea, and that came from the community, too.
Yeah,
That whole
it really
thing
is.
developed from
Great.
one lady's problem. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very good. Did you have something?
Yeah, actually, a couple things. I wanted to let everybody know that we're hosting our first baseball state tournament this weekend. It runs Thursday through Sunday down at Bob Smith Park. It's a junior national state tournament. I think this is either the third or fourth straight year that we've done this tournament. It was kind of exciting because we went up to the meeting last night of all the teams that qualified. Lebanon actually doesn't have a team in it, so we're just hosting. And I asked, because I was curious, how many of you are actually staying in Lebanon? And we actually, for the first time, had some people that are actually staying in a Lebanon hotel, and they were amazed.
Excellent.
They said, that, and the other one said, well, we didn't know about it, or we would have, or they had checked, and the pool's not ready yet, so they weren't going to stay for the kids. But I guarantee you, next year, when they have that pool done, and everybody's out there knows about it, that hotel is going to be full of kids, and those people aren't going to be spending money in Albany, which is, another positive thing about it, so. So that's kind of exciting, and we're actually going to be hosting a second state tournament. It'll be the first year we've ever hosted two state tournaments. We're going to be hosting a midget federal state tournament the following weekend. And we're hosting two district tournaments. So all in all, we're going to have something close to 30 different teams coming to Lebanon
How many
over the next 2 weeks. Well, there'll be 12, this weekend there'll be 12 teams with an average of 12 kids on at a team, so 144, everybody's probably bringing 4 or 5 fans. So, and then we actually, the midget federal district tournament is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is going to be 4 teams, 3 of them from out of here. So, we're literally going to have 700 or 800 people in town this weekend from out of town. So,
That's great.
so it's really cool. And honestly, we couldn't have done it really without the city's support. Jason Williams is phenomenal. The money that we get from the tourism stuff through the chamber makes it so we can keep that field in the type of condition it's in. And people come here and they just say that they're just amazed at our fields. Honestly, potentially the best natural surface, youth level fields in the state. We're getting there, really close. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. And I do have 2 other things I thought of. Revitalize Main Street, I had kind of mentioned that to you, that we were trying to get that through. Unfortunately, the legislature did not put that in the bills for the money for the downtowns throughout the community. However, they did give some money for the Main Street program, and next meeting, we're going to have some, I think Ted Holliday is going to come in from Uncle Doc Steiner is going to come in and talk about the Main Street program and see if we want to get involved. I'm pretty sure it's something we want to do. I know we sent some folks a couple years ago to the Main Street Conference in Astoria, and it's a great program, and it's part of our kind of Main Street revitalization. So even though we didn't get the thing we were looking for, there's still some money there for Main Street. And then also, kind of piggybacking what Trey said, the city put in a bid to bring the Oregon Mayor's Conference here in 2017. So we put together a whole package of train trips and all these different things. And from the conferences I've been to, our town's pretty cool. I mean, we've got stuff, and so it's pretty exciting. So we should hear about that by the end of July, I believe, and find out if we're going to get it. And that would bring 100 mayors to town, families, and it showcases all the things that we've done. And in 2 years, who knows what we're going to have done. So it's pretty exciting. I'm very excited about that. Next up, public comments. Is there anyone else? Oh, yes.
Just one more I saw in the paper that the LBCC got the 1.5 million.
Yes.
So do we know how much of that is going to be coming to our technology center here?
I believe it's all going to that center,
Coming
yes.
to
Yeah,
this
it's to do the second phase, that back part of the diesel section.
Right.
So, yeah, that was pretty exciting.
Oh, Bob?
Paul, where are we on the mural park?
That's my question.
Actually, next 22nd, thank you. 22nd, we have going to the Parks and Tree Committee. And actually, no, it'll be the Parks and Tree Committee next week, and then it'll come to council at that meeting. So we'll have that here, and we've got some pretty exciting stuff to show you guys. It's pretty cool.
Some of it, I think.
It's exciting.
Pretty neat.
Did you have something, Jason?
Merrill Park.
Okay. Okay, and comments from the public? Was there anybody else who would like to speak? Items from the press? Nothing? Come on.
Good, because we're late.
Okay, well, actually, the next thing is the meeting's adjourned.